Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Summers McKay.
And I'm Kristy Jansen, and we're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help make it one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy podcast. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of February, 2021. Happy February 17th. Happy Ash Wednesday. Happy beginning of Lent. Day after Mardi Gras. Did you have a wild Mardi Gras party last night with lots of people?
Well, not exactly lots of people, but way more people than I've been interacting with and up close and personal of late. And I am now in my new quarantine, getting ready to head up into my bigger bubble of extended family and kin. And in order to do that, I'm quarantining. But this time I'm quarantining in a bigger quarantine bubble than I was before. It's my friend Sarah and Lena. There's 2 households, all of our kids, and I've brought Tucker with me, and Lena's dog is also, we have like a whole different kind of energy. You remember when I last quarantined, I was with my friend Aggie, and I was calling that the Zen house. It had Buddhist statues all over the place. It was a beautiful, big house. There was 3 of us in this relatively very serene setting. This is not like that at all. First of all, the internet was not working for a day and a half. Finally, it is. But there's teenagers. There's my little friend James, who's 8 years old, who I used to take care of at least twice a week, and I haven't really seen much for a year. He's hanging out with us. And my little Elijah, my little nephew, who's 3, is with us. And then there's Tucker, and then his dog friend Moses is also with us. So the other house, I called it the Zen house, and I'm calling this experience the zoo house. And that's a different kind of energy that I'm in the middle of right now.
I love the notion that your version of quarantine is like tripling down on the number of people that you're with. And it's so, I mean, obviously the practicality is that you guys are an isolated group of people and all of your food will be delivered. And, you know, there's all these protocols you're taking measures to ensure that you are an isolated group. But it's so fabulous to me that you now have 3 times as many people as you normally do.
I know.
Creatures to interact with right now.
Creatures. And in the neighborhood that we're in, there's like a horse stables nearby, so we can walk in the morning and see horses. We're in this little cottage, which is owned on a bigger property, and there's ducks and there's chickens. And so it really is like zoo, you know?
Yeah, it is definitely a cute zoo. Kristy and I had a little check-in conversation yesterday while Miss Amelia was out, and seemingly is all better because we saw her this morning. So Amelia, we're glad that you're better and your teeth are feeling good. And thank you for coming back to work so quickly. Seeing Kristy kind of light up yesterday as she talked about the chaos and delight of the chaos when entering the zoo house made me smile. So
and I'm just not prepared for this kind of, I mean, you've been dealing with a toddler throughout this whole thing. I don't have that kind of experience. I've been pretty much in control of my surroundings, almost too much, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, we have likewise lost any semblance of real control for our surroundings. Brennan has discovered sidewalk chalk. She's also discovered that sidewalk chalk is perfect for drawing on boxes. And so our home, which is full of boxes, is also colorfully decorated by the scribblings of this little girl who wakes up in the morning and the first thing she says is chalk, chalk. And I just literally let her down and let her run around. She fortunately knows not to like draw on furniture, which I don't know how she's making that discernment, but she knows that she can draw wildly on boxes. Welcome to the zoo, Kristy. Welcome to the zoo. Oh, well, that's good. Now, so tell us just some of the practicalities of it, right? So you'll quarantine for 2 weeks and then you'll go be in your bubble with your extended, friends and family and kin who all share that. How does it work? How do you make it work so that you guys ensure safety protocols so that you can have a larger community?
So right now we're not having any direct contact with the outside world. That's why I'm in this household. We did a bunch of ordering in advance, and we all sort of were doing a little bit of being cut off from the rest of the world to the best of our ability before we came together. 5 or 6 days in, we're going to all get our tests for COVID and make sure we're good. And then we'll continue to quarantine for a full 14 days before we move into interaction with other people who are in more vulnerable populations. Although I know many people now who are in the middle of getting their vaccinations for COVID.
Yes.
So, because they're older or healthcare professionals. So it's an interesting time.
It is.
But I'm very excited to be, it's really nice to be with different people right now, even though the transition for me was a little bit like
a little shocking.
Whoa. But I'm happy. I'm happy with it.
A wee bit on the shocking side. Well, we're coming up on a year, right? And I realized that some of our family plans and our moving plans have been shifted a bit because of the inclement snow disaster.
Inclement? How about extreme?
Extreme
weather.
Extreme weather, right? A few weeks ago, I was talking to a friend. As many of you know, I'm a first-time home buyer, and this is an exhausting and relatively dramatic exercise in going from paying more in rent than you do in mortgage, yet still needing to be approved in order to do it. It's just, anyone who's bought a house, that it is really stressful. But we had dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's and, had backup plan upon backup plan upon backup plan for the financing. And I asked a friend, what could get in the way of our move? What factors? And he jokingly said, well, pretty much a natural disaster is just about it. And I was like, like that'll happen. So Kristy and I had timed her time in quarantine and being away and my move. We'd sort of timed them in alignment so we could take a week off and share some short episodes of the podcast together. And then now it turns out that everything is all screwy and we're going to have to figure it out. Our grand plan of alignment on this one is now off by 4 or 5 days because my family, we are going to have to delay our move a smidge because it'll be fine. But this is the zoo. This is the zoo we live in this world we live in these days. And you have to find the things that keep you optimistic, even in the face of all of the drama,
In the face of challenge. And, you were talking about today being the 17th, Wednesday the 17th is Ash Wednesday. It's also, as a matter of fact, National Random Acts of Kindness Day. I don't know if you realize that.
I realized it only because I read the Optimist Daily.
I don't even know if we mentioned it there, although we do have an article about kindness today.
Yeah.
Should I lead with my headline?
I think you should lead with some kindness. I think we should kick it off.
I mean, it's talking about what keeps us positive and optimistic. I think expressing kindness and being kind is one of those things that really can actually help us feel more positive. It's the act of kindness that brings my mood up, I know. And I think that even though this has been a really tough year, a lot of people have been finding one way that they can cope is actually by looking outside of themselves and being kinder. And there's a study, and this is the headline, a study that has found that people may have become kinder during the pandemic. And that's what this article is about. It's our number 10 story on today's solution. You have to go beyond the homepage to find it. But it starts out talking about Captain Tom Moore, who was the 99-year-old veteran who in the UK made it his goal before his 100th birthday to raise money to contribute to the National Health Service by walking around his garden. And even though he was expecting to raise just a couple $1,000s, he ended up raising over 33 million pounds, which was then donated to the UK's National Health Service. And we talked about that back, I think, in April or May of last year, when he was doing this gesture of kindness, which was going outside of himself to give back. And it was very inspirational to a lot of people. Captain Moore recently passed away, which is sad, but his gesture of kindness has continued to live on beyond his life. And a recent study conducted by Travelodge, of all organizations, found that a quarter of the total number of participants were inspired by the veteran to become more kind. And the vast majority of the people that they spoke with, they reported they generally have become kinder during the pandemic, making more of an effort to stay in touch with their loved ones, even if they haven't been able to socially or physically gather with them. More donations are being made to food banks, other forms of charities, and just being considerate of other people. And that's an idea that seems to be more common among the people that Travelodge surveyed. I think that's great. And I have a sense that that is the case, even if what you see in the headlines hasn't necessarily been all that positive or friendly. I think that in general, people are wanting to get back in touch with the better angels of our nature.
Well, and, it is sort of a tale of two cities, right? In the sense that media and the stories that we read oftentimes are about the more hurtful or harmful or sad or inflamed perspectives. But what we do know from a practical standpoint, from interacting with other people, from the sentiments on social media, from the way that we see people interact with the Optimist Daily content, is that there is an increased investment in kindness and solutions and sharing. And, we're able to see the frequency and velocity with which people forward our articles, and the articles that get forwarded and then the responses from the folks who receive them back to the publication are all about gratitude for reminders of kindness and reminders of collaboration. And I think that we all know that this is a tough time and that there is a lot of challenge in the world, but then at the same time, it has given us a responsibility to one another that perhaps we ignored in the past. And, there are a lot of blessings that can come from challenging times. And one of those blessings is that really crisis can bring people together. And this has been an extraordinary year of crisis. And we are coming together and people are basically digging up their yards.
Are you?
I'm trying
is
very
this a transition to yours?
Transition.
So what other things are people coming together to do, Summers?
Okay, well, we know that citizen science is on the rise. We know that community gardening and helping with pollinators is definitely all grown during the pandemic, simply because people are looking in their own yards to say, what can I do and how can I help? What we also like to see is that there are surges in community forests. So my headline reads, the UK is seeing a surge in community forest projects, from the environment section of the Optimist Daily. Around the globe, people are exerting more efforts to reverse generations of unsustainable and damaging practices that have led to climate transition, climate change.
Climate crisis. It's a catastrophe if you look at in Austin right now.
I know. I know. Why? Why does Austin have to have a catastrophe this month? It's just because I am being reminded that solutions are needed everywhere.
Exactly.
Anyway, all right. So this headline talks about that in the Yorkshire Dales in the UK, there is a plan to plant hundreds of trees in an effort to tackle the climate crisis. We read another story last week that old tennis courts and old parking lots were being turned into mini forests. And this particular organization, it's basically a local climate change group in the village, have come together and written to local landowners asking permission to grow trees on their land. 7 of the landowners to whom they have reached out to have said absolutely. And for basically £2, willing villagers pay for the tree itself, a cane and a spiral to protect it from rabbits. More than 150 trees have already been sponsored to be planted this spring. Basically, since the first lockdown in the UK, there have been more and more groups, such as this group, and getting involved at projects aimed at improving local environments. This is just one teeny tiny example of how communities and citizens are coming together and saying, what can we do in our backyard? And frankly, what can we do in your backyard?
Yeah.
If we don't have one.
Summers, I find it interesting that both of the stories that we're talking about sort of kindness and community spirit and coming together to solve problems together came from the UK.
Well, certainly that's probably because some of our source materials that we look at UK centric, because I know without question they're happening in the United States as well. And
I know they are, but I think I invite our audience to write in and tell us about things in their backyards.
Exactly. Like, please share with us the good things that are happening in your neighborhoods, your communities, the good things people are doing. I have recently joined, all the community groups in the city that I am moving to, and I'm watching a lot of people with, a lot of frustration and a lot of concern because of the widespread power outages that are happening, and then seeing people who are offering to help in different ways and coming up with ideas. Now, granted, it is an area in crisis right now, and there aren't solutions because they were largely unprepared for this. And for any number of reasons, the power grid and systems were not prepared for this level of cold. But we know that elsewhere in the country, there are people just getting together and really trying to make a difference. And I love that. And I love reading the Optimist Daily, because even on a day when the world can feel a bit frigid, the Optimist Daily gives us some warmth. There are some other warm headlines from the Optimist Daily today. One of the headlines reads, "This little known weed is a powerful source of plant-based omega-3s." And you should take a look at it and figure out which one that is.
And speaking of cold, there's been a discovery of life at 3,000 feet below the Antarctic ice shelf. That was an awesome discovery. Talk about frigid.
Right. AI-powered tool can predict tsunami flooding in real time. There is a Spanish designer who has created a cosmetic line out of food waste. I kind of love the idea of orange peels being my rouge. With parades canceled, New Orleans has transferred homes into floats. There was a way to celebrate Mardi Gras, and they've done an interesting job with that. What else, Kristy?
There's a new AI system that actually seeks to predict human error, not just to avoid it, but it can make some determinations there. There's a new drug which is showing promise in pancreatic and breast cancer treatment. And I think that that's one of those interesting developing medical advances that are going to help us all be healthier going forward. Yeah. The luxury car brand Jaguar is planning to go all electric by 2025. That's only 4 years from now. That's pretty tremendous to move in that direction.
The entire brand is going.
The entire brand of Jaguar and Land Rover is saying that they will reimagine their cars and go all electric for its entire fleet of all the Jaguars, and then I guess 60% of Land Rovers to be zero emission vehicles by 2030. In 2025, they're going to do the all electric Jaguar brand.
All right, well, I'm obviously going to be buying a
cars,
Jaguar. Exactly. I'll clearly be having my all-electric Jaguar in 2025 because
happy with
optimism, the business of optimism is a very fast-growing industry here. But I love it. A while ago we talked about you've got Iron Man and you've got local people all sort of making changes. So luxury brands and public fleets are all needing to be moved into a more sustainable direction. So, and this will of course push the industry to create sustainability and circularity around the manufacture of those batteries. So we couldn't be happier about that. Well, Kristy, I think that's probably it for today, right? We need to get on to our Wednesday, and so does everyone else. But I guess we'll just say thank you, everybody, for listening to the Optimist Daily Update. We promise to continue to share positive, solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. We promise to cover the current events with accuracy, legitimate sources, and offer you the information needed most to chart new paths for all of us.
If you're not already, please consider becoming an emissary on theoptimistdaily.com. And for starting at just $5 a month, you can help support independent, reader-funded journalism and be a part of the solution-changing consciousness that addresses our world's biggest challenges with a problem-solving mindset. Please help us keep the Optimist Daily free for everyone who needs it, supported by those of us who can. Thanks so much for listening, everybody, and we'll be back tomorrow with more solutions.